it's me, Nimso. Welcome back to another video. Excuse me. Don't know what's going on with my voice today. It's me, Nimso. Welcome back to another video. Today we are standing around in the VTube studio once more. Let's pop over to the chair. Woo! It's me. Oh, also Tubby also has a costume for today. Click, 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 and click. Woo! There we go. Tubby has a Stormtrooper helmet. Woo! Look at him. Look at him. Yes, it's been quite a while since I made a video. You know, I've had a lot of things to do and things that are going on in life. A lot of work still going on, and I am working on Project TX. I know that's the one thing that people want to see, and there's an update coming as soon as possible, and that will come this year. There's no troubles there. Regardless of that though, one thing I wanted to do, I've been wanting to do this kind of video for a while. It's another how it works video. Another sort of how it works style video at least, and it is not specifically how a game works, rather how a game's bugs happen or glitches happen. And one game that came out really recently is a brilliant example because it's something that connects to me a little bit more than you might think. A little bit of background about this. Hold on, the audio might have crashed on my system. Don't worry, it'll come back in a moment. Blah, 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 blah. And it seems to be back. Okay, hopefully the recording will still work. A little bit of background about this. We're going to look at Star Wars Outlaws. I know that's I'm a bit about a month late on all the hype. And I'm very aware of what's going on right now. But I really wanted to do this video. It's something I've been seeing some of the bugs and glitches that people have been posting online, and it was one of those things. It was like, okay, yeah, I really can explain some of these, and I would really like to try and explain some of these. Some of them I won't be able to, but that's just how it is. I'm just going to lower this volume just in case it is blasting a little bit too much. As I said, a little bit of background. The game engine that this game works on is actually something, it's the Snowdrop engine, and that's actually an engine that I had worked a little bit on. Now, I didn't do much for the engine itself, but I was working on a project along with a few colleagues when I was working at Ubisoft on a game that was using that engine. And as such, I know some of the behind the scenes things that were going on with it. At the same time as we were working, the Avatar game was being built on there as well. So I'm going to have a little bit of extra background going on in terms of what I might know about that engine and why that might impact some of the things that you're going to see. Let's get right in with it. So here we go. We'll switch over to camera 4. Yeah, and we'll pop open the green screen. The green screen. Oh, it's not supposed to look like that. Click. There we go. It's supposed to look like this. So we've got a YouTube video open already, which is great. And we're just going to jump straight in. We're just going to have a look at some of the things that we've got going on here. Ooh, I want to point out one thing. I did add something. I can't reach. You see, my hand tracking kind of dies out if I go any further than this. So a good way for me to reach was to have an additional little tool that I have, which is this. There's no sound effects, but now I can kind of point a little bit further if the tracking will work. There we go. Yes, I can actually point further along the screen. It's not brilliant. I'm gonna add some other mechanics to upgrade that later, but right now, there you go. I can actually point on the screen just to point things out if I wanted to. First up, let's just jump straight into this. We've got a video going here, which is talking a little bit about the, not necessarily bugs and glitches, but sometimes design features. So just looking at this here, we've got a grenade, and of course, seated characters don't get exploded. Nothing happens to them. I want to really talk about this. It's one of those things that I've learned over years and years of gaming and game dev. Usually when it comes to chairs and seats, in a more modern game, maybe more modern in terms of like the past 10 years or so, you will have characters that activate a seat in the same way they activate vehicles, right? They get attached to the seat and they become involved in terms of they are now in a vehicle, and that vehicle is a seating point. Usually what you'll notice, and you'll see this if you play any GTA games, if a character is inside a vehicle, the way they are impacted by weapons and guns, you know, and explosions is usually completely different to when they're outside of a vehicle, right? It's very much the Indiana Jones hide in the fridge problem going on here. This is literally the Indiana Jones hiding in a fridge thing going on. The nuclear explosion happens around you and you're perfectly fine because you're sitting inside the fridge. In this case, the fridge is actually just a chair, right? If you are in a vehicle, you're perfectly safe from explosions unless that vehicle is designed to pass on the interaction to the player or character underneath the hood. So there we go. It's just, that's that one, right? And then we've got, you know, someone just talking about the quality of interactions here. We've got falling through the floor. This, you basically got pushed by the collision of this dude. Here we go. These are simple things. Like, these are expected glitches that just happen. And, you know, the character moved over the player and then you got pushed through the ground. The ground is not a volumetric collision. It's a, you know, it's a single thin object. And then you've got this, right, which is the gun. The gun's kind of fallen on top of this. Now, one design choice I really don't like, and everybody doesn't seem to like this about this game, is it doesn't allow you to keep your large weapons and stuff when you're moving on ladders, when you're climbing, when you're doing parkour or anything like that. Although there isn't really a parkour system. When you're climbing walls and stuff like that, right? And actually, I want to mention something about this. One of the things about this, I'll come back to this statement again later. It's very similar to how Assassin's Creed used to work back in the old days. With Assassin's Creed 4, if anyone who played that quite a lot, I played it a heck of a lot. And with Assassin's Creed 4, you could pick weapons up from the ground, like just random scattered weapons. They did not count as your inventory, right? You would not store those weapons in your pocket or on your holster or whatever. You would drop them when you start parkouring. So it's very similar to what's going on here, except there's a bit more to it than that. In that game, when you climbed a ladder, because that is not considered a parkour thing, it's just considered a proper maneuver, you actually get to keep your weapon. There's actually a small timer that happens. So even if you jump onto a fence and start walking along the fence, or jump off it, normally when you jump on the fence, you'll actually drop your additional weapon. But that doesn't always happen, because if you jump on and immediately jump off, the timer doesn't complete, and as such, you actually get to keep the weapon, right? So this game effectively kind of copied some of the mechanics or design ideas from Assassin's Creed, and it didn't really do them very well, which is, it's a little bit annoying, right? That's a little bit sad. And actually that's something I'm going to touch upon a little bit later, which is the idea of repeatable mechanics, right? So here, this is something, one of the things that Ubisoft kind of wanted us to do when you're building gameplay mechanics. I was working on an Assassin's Creed game, but it was the VR Assassin's Creed game, is the idea that any mechanics you devise should really be repeatable and reusable, and not just in the same franchise. In fact, let me show you something really quickly here. So here we go, we've got Splinter Cell Blacklist, right? This game was released, I think, 2012, 2013. And in this game, something that is a gameplay mechanic is something that I noticed in other games. And you'll know it immediately once you see it here. I'm just going to lower the volume quite quickly. And as soon as I press play, you'll see something that you will have seen many, many times before. So here we go. Here, character is standing there. Sunfish is about to run past, and there it is, right? Did you see that thing? Okay, so I'll show you again here. As Sam Fisher walks into view, the detection circle over here, this thing up here, right, which is, yeah, it's up there, right? It's directly above your trigger, above your pointer, your aim. It starts to fill up, right? So there we go. It fills up as you're standing in front of a character, and then once they've completed their view of you and you've been fully detected, it does this flashing thing. And then if you knock them out, it scrolls back in and then cuts off. You'll have seen that many times before, because it's not just in Splinter Cell. here we have Far Cry 5, a game that's a few years later than Splinter Cell, Blacklist, probably about 5 years or so. It says 2017 here, which would be a little bit less than 5 years, but there we go. And as you're firing at players here, ooh, it's a bit loud. There we go. And notice right here at the top, next to where the church is, you can see that same thing, that very same thing, expanding, and then it does the little flashy thing, right? The UI is very, very similar, if not basically the same. And then you look at Assassin's Creed Origins. And again, Origins, Odyssey, a bunch of Assassin's Creed games do this, and you'll see it once more. There it is, right there in front of you, just above the character. You can see that scaling detection UI, right? All three of these games have the same thing. Splinter Cell, which is supposed to be modern age technology, the UI suits it, right? You look at the UI everywhere, it suits it. Then you've got Far Cry, guerrilla warfare in the jungle, in the forest, in wherever, and you're kind of just using tools that you find, AK-47s and planks of wood, throwing stones, whatever, right? The UI suits that, yet it still has the same thing. Assassin's Creed takes place, in this case, it takes place in, ancient Egypt, and again, same UI, right? Personally, from what I know, I would say they're probably reusing, not entirely. This is not a copy-paste job, right? So what they tend to do is, these games are built on different game engines, right? So they kind of use, and there it is, it glows yellow, and then it does what it does. So that's repeatable mechanics. It's something that they want you to do as a game developer so that they can reuse mechanics later down the line, but they're not copy-pasted. They're copied and then kind of rebuilt for whatever game engine you need to work on, or whatever game you need to work on. So that's just how it works. Let's continue here, and I want to talk about this bug. It's not really a bug, but here you can see that the weapon kind of falls. Ignore what they're saying. They're obviously talking about the frustrating design, and yeah, I agree, it's a very frustrating design. But you can see that the weapon just kind of sits on top of the ladder, and that's because the ladder has a collision, right? It's not going to have you actually colliding with all of these complex little bars and things like that, and all of the little pieces, the yellow bit, the gray bit, and I know the yellow bit frustrates a lot of people as well. It's not going to have you colliding with all of that. It's just a simple trigger zone. As soon as the player collides with it, they activate their little ladder movement, and as such, that same collision is being seen when the gun drops out of your hand. Right? So it's landing on top of the ladder, and then you can see it's fallen through, because once it goes past that trigger collision, it actually just falls right to the ground. There are no other collisions on that ladder. There doesn't need to be any collisions on that ladder. Now, here's a little bit of a frustrating design choice. It's not a bug, it's not a glitch, it's actually by design. Here you can see that the characters, the main player has entered a vent, and the enemies have seen you enter the vent, and now they can't hit you at all, right? And again, this is a design choice. I don't really like it as a design choice, but it's a design choice. Effectively, they're firing at you and they can't hit you at all. This is intentional. It's supposed to be that as soon as the player enters a vent, you're now existing as escaping, right? You're now considered escaping, and then after this, the player actually announces, "Oh, hey Nix, we kind of got away." Oh, just a thing I noticed. The little munchkin thing, the little pet is called Nix, which is a great little name. I just realized that while watching a bunch of these videos. Yeah, it steals things. So of course its name is Nix, as in it nicks a bunch of things from other people. great naming there. I love it. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, so yeah, you enter the vent and that's it. They just give up, right? So you've escaped now. You've fully escaped. We can skip a bunch of this. It's not all bugs and glitches. And then you've got this dude, blah blah blah. Oh, this is beautiful. Okay, so what's going on here? Right. So when the character jumps down a slope, right? And I think there is one at the end of this. We'll talk about this in a minute. There is one at the end of this. No, there's not. Right, okay, so it's a different video. We'll see it in a little bit. When the character enters a slope that is designed for you to slide down, there isn't a complex mechanic like in a Super Mario game, for example, where the character will kind of slide and angle themselves onto the surface, and, you know, like a proper platformer, it would, you know, use the angle of the surface. There's none of that. What's going on here is the character plays an animation, and within that animation, there is an actual tilt, right? So, okay, my hands can't really show that. There we go. There's an actual tilt in the animation. The player itself the character doesn't actually tilt, right? It's only part of the animation, which means that when you play that animation, you will tilt forward no matter what angle the ground is at, and you will do so in the direction you're facing. As soon as you hit the ground, you're not supposed to be coming from this side, right? This ground is not supposed to make you slide at all, because you're not coming from above. If you were coming from above, you'd be facing downwards, you'd be facing towards the camera, and as such, the slide would look correct. But because you're not, you're rotating while changing into that slide animation. And as such, you're performing the slide animation, which has that angle in there, and rotating towards the direction that the slide is supposed to happen, right? And as a result, you get this really unusual look, right? So this is, I mean, they can improve that. It's not really something that is part of this game's design. But yeah, it's just one of those, it's an unlucky scenario. You probably should have had a backward sliding animation in there, you know, and then just swap the camera around so that you continue, and then have her flip around while she's sliding. You know, there's a solution to this problem, but again, it's not really a bug or glitch. It's just a missing element of design, right? Here, we've got something that I really want to actually mention, and this actually touches a little bit upon the grenade explosion thing at the start as well. Here you can see these characters, they get knocked about a bit, and then that's it. You're kind of colliding, and there's no problem here. There's nothing happening. You're not being depenetrated, which is where you're colliding, you're intercolliding, you're intersecting with some object, and the game engine just says, okay, you need to be repositioned outside, right? That's depenetration. And that's removal of you from within a collider. And what's going on here is that's just not happening, right? And that probably would happen with certain types of characters. Let's talk a little bit about the types of characters. In front of you, we are playing Hitman, right? So this is actually a video from the Rad Brad. I'm gonna mute off the video, and this is a very important part there. We just want to have Agent 47 walking up here, and I think just here, yes, here we go. He activates the instinct. Okay. You can see all of these characters in front of you. There's a bunch of characters here just in front of you, and some characters way in the background, right? And there's a lot of them. These, the ones that you're seeing right in front of you, they're real NPCs. These are real characters. They're actual, fully functional. They have all of the functionality of a real character, right? But you can see that when in instinct, you can see, even though on the left-hand side there, on the, let's see if we can point him out. On the left-hand side there, you can see a guard, and that guard gets highlighted in a very, very bright white color. Whereas all the other characters here, just here, one that I'm poking right now, they're all just innocent characters, right? They're all just normal characters, like this one here. These are just normal, innocent, you know, bystander type characters. So they're not enemies, and as such, they're highlighted in a slightly, you know, a slightly low lighted color, right? They're slightly faded, they're a little bit less highlighted. That thing at the end is the most important interacting character to deal with. However, they are still highlighted, right? And that's because they're real NPCs. Now, when he continues walking along here, you'll see that there's a massive group of characters in front of us. Here, when he's looking around, you can see he uses instinct again, right? Now, when he uses instinct again, you can see some characters are highlighted, but other characters are completely unhighlighted at all, right? And in fact, when the camera spins, you'll see right there, you can see here, that the just in front of my hand here, right? There's a character there, that is being highlighted, who is that woman that was giving out the drinks at the start, right? So that's a woman handing out drinks. That's a real NPC. But around you, you can see all of these other characters who are not highlighted at all. They are ghosts. They are fake NPCs. They are low quality, less functionality, less interactability, and they function as visual clutter. They're simply there to animate and look like there's a large amount of characters. They're crowd NPCs, and what we call them, you know, when we were making Assassin's Creed Nexus, they're called imposters. They are imposters. They are fake NPCs. Hence I called the other ones real NPCs, right? Now with Star Wars, what's going on here, and most likely is the case, right? And this happens to be the case with a lot of Ubisoft sort of open world games. Unlike GTA, which we'll talk about in a moment, they work in the same way that Hitman works, where there's crowd NPCs. When there are a lot of characters in the scene in front of you, a lot of them are actually just billboards. They're just fake. They are effectively the fence. They're a fence in GTA. They exist to be a small, simple, collidable object. You can knock into them and they break, and that's it. That's all of their interactivity. There's no complex driving or shooting or anything like that. If you were to play something like GTA, on the other hand, every single NPC in the world, including birds and characters and, you know, animals that are running around the world, they're all real NPCs. They're all real characters. You can literally play as each of them and enter a vehicle and drive. You can literally play as a dog in GTA and carry a weapon and drive and all of that. They're all fully functioning interactable NPCs. Whereas these games, they don't have that, right? Some of the characters are there to fill up the world to make it look like it's got more characters than it really has. And as such, the quality of collisions is also lower. Hence, you get scenarios like this. These characters in this game, it's very much designed for you to not kill innocents and not deal with innocents. So a lot of them are basically just filler. They're just there to act as a copy of an NPC. An NPC in the real world, obviously, you know, is supposed to simulate a real person, right? An NPC in the main game. But then these imposter NPCs are supposed to simulate an NPC, which is a simulation of a real person, right? This next bit, we've got the characters trying to jump up this wall, and you'll see something else. There we go, just there. Here you can see she's sliding backwards. Now earlier we know she couldn't slide backwards on that ground earlier, right? That's because this one's not a ground. This is not actually a traversal option. Earlier on, what you'd have is that slope where the player can actually slide down, and that's a traversal option, and you'll see that later on in this video today. It's not that. What we're looking at is a wall. It's supposed to be a boundary. It's supposed to limit you from going past, and it forces you to slide down, but the game doesn't always do that. You're either in the sliding state where it pushes you backwards, or the wall doesn't have that and maybe the angle isn't right, in which case it can't do anything because it's trying to just drop you downwards, and you can see ground below you, so you just activate standing. As such, either you're sliding like this, or you're just able to stand on the wall, as you could see just then, right? She's just able to stand on the wall. It's either pushing you off or you're standing. And again, this is not a traversal option, and as such, earlier on, she wasn't able to perform that backwards slide because that's not the type of land it was. That was traversal land, as opposed to this one, which is supposed to be act as a boundary. And then we've got the person here playing the game complaining that you can't swim, which again, it's a design decision. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. Next video, we've got here another usual, a sort of common problem. So remember when I mentioned depenetration? That's when two colliders are kind of stuck inside each other, and they're kind of they get pushed out by the physics engine, because it says this is a physical impossibility, two collisions can't be interlocking, and therefore you have to get pushed out. So here's what's happening. She's getting pushed out of the surface behind her and of the wall in front of her at the same time. However, at the same time as that, she's also not seeing ground underneath her, and as such, she has to enter fall state. So she's now in fall state, perpetually falling while being pushed forward and back and not being allowed to go anywhere, right? So this is what's going on here. And you can hear the players talking. And now she's switching perpetually between fall and land. And so she's just kind of stuck. She's just stuck. She can't move. The game is just pushing her in multiple directions all at once. Right? It's a sad reality sometimes. What's going on with my hands? That's just how it is. Next video. Oh, this one is nice. This one, oh, I've been waiting to do something like this. But before we do this one, in fact, I want to switch to a different video, which is this video player here. Right? I want to play this one first. So here we go. We've got a video here, which is not playing smoothly. Oh, there we go. Right. So you'll have seen this video earlier or already. It comes from Twitter. And what happens here is she's trying to walk up to this character here in stealth, and she's going to perform a stealth takedown. Now, when a stealth takedown happens, both characters perform an animation at the same time, a synchronized animation. So what happens is she performs her knockout animation and then grabs the character. In this video, something goes wrong. And as soon as she activates the actual connection, the synchronized animation, where that character starts animating and your character is animating at the same time to match and synchronize your animations, she starts getting pushed back. So what's going on here, I'm taking a guess. I'm taking a guess on this one. There is a collision of this character. And remember, you're supposed to get depenetrated from enemy NPC characters when you're interlocking. So you get repositioned outside and you can always kind of just move around them, but you can't move into their space. Otherwise, earlier on, you weren't getting pushed out properly by those fake NPCs. These are the real ones. These are enemies. So these have all the functionality, right? So they are pushing her backwards. What's supposed to happen is when she begins the synchronization animation, where both characters are interacting so closely that their collisions would be intercolliding, right? It's supposed to disable the collision between her and that enemy. If it doesn't, then you've got a problem, because now, oh wait, I can't step like that. I have to step like this. Yeah, I'm not in YouTube. If it doesn't, then she's now playing an animation with this character while also being within their collision, meaning she gets pushed back. But because that character is attached to her as a synchronized animation, they both get pushed back, and as such, in the next frame, she's still inside collision. So she gets pushed back again, and then they get pushed back again, and they get perpetually pushed back until that animation completes, at which point she's no longer synchronized with them, and she can get pushed fully out, and now she can continue moving around. And so she got pushed around the world because of, a failed disable of collision, right? It was supposed to disable, it didn't. Similar thing happens now in this other video that we were looking at just now, right? So here we go. We'll switch back to the browser. There we go. So now a similar thing happens here. She's firing at this enemy here, right? This kind of iguana lizard type thing, which I think has a name. Does it have a name here? Massifs. There we go. And as that character attacks her, she starts playing an animation that doesn't work properly and starts getting pushed back. Right. In fact, the exact amount of time that she gets pushed back for is actually the following animation. So I found it in this video. It's this animation. These are the same characters, Massifs. It catches her and she's playing this animation, which takes 4 seconds, right? So here we go. Let's just watch that again. We'll look at the timer on the YouTube video. So here we go. Right. As it catches her, she performs this arm up maneuver, right? Which is exactly what you're seeing when she's getting hit here. So that's the starting of that animation. It's supposed to be playing, right? But So here we go. It starts at 9:30 and this animation carries on playing, and then she kicks it and it finishes at 9:34, right? 9:34, that animation is completed. That character is now either knocked out and dead or is now able to move around, right? 4 seconds. So if we look at this video again, we'll see that the animation starts at this frame here, which you'll see something else very soon, right? It starts at this frame here when her target vanishes. So 0:39 and then 1, 2, and 3, right? So this is where the animation finishes. That's 4 seconds, exactly the same amount of time as the other one, and now she's able to move around, right? So 4 seconds. That animation had to play out in full, even though it wasn't working. Why wasn't it working? Well, you should know why it wasn't working. Here, the character tries to attack her, but it's already been killed. You see here, it's actually gone into Ragdoll. It's died, meaning it can't play the synced animation. And as such, the animation has just completely failed. And again, we've now got a collision problem, right? So that collider is now playing with her and the Ragdoll has just, flip-flopped off, right? The Ragdoll is now failed. The enemy is probably still right here in front of her, attempting to play an animation. A timer has begun, 4 seconds, and she'll be fine. But until then, she's gonna get pushed back. And you can see exactly when she killed the creature, right before that animation started. So here we go, you can see that there's a red target in the aim. That laser shot here killed the character, and now you can see a white target. That's because there's no longer an enemy in front of her. But that's not the frame where the animation started. Here in the next frame, the target has vanished, and that's because the animation has started, so she's no longer in aim state. Within a single frame, she managed to kill the character and begin, a frame later, begin the animation for getting caught, right? And that's why you ended up with this, because the character died within 2 frames of that animation starting, right? that's why it happened. So there we go. That's what goes on. Next video, right? Here we've got, what video are we on? ADE, okay, blah 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 blah. Oh, there's a few of them here. Okay, so falling into crowd. Here we go, we've got that same problem again. This time there is an external collision pushing her out. She hasn't entered into that area where the game doesn't push you out of the character, so she's getting pushed back. She's getting pushed between the bike and this character and that barrel, all of those things. Here we've got that very same thing from the very beginning of this video. We had characters that were seated, and because they were seated, they were no longer in the game world. They acted as vehicle interior characters, right? So they were just kind of functioning part of the vehicle. This game doesn't really add collisions or anything from what I can see, based on when characters are sitting on bikes. So what she's seeing right now is she's basically interacting as if that bike is a static object or still a bike object by itself with no one riding it, right? Because the game doesn't really account for the fact that you can stop people from riding their bikes by placing your bike in front of it, right? So the game just doesn't, it's not designed for that. Again, it's not even a bug, it's just a massive oversight, right? It's jumping over bike. Okay, camera detects collide. Oh, this one's really confused me actually. This one, I don't think I've got an idea of why it happened. I kind of figured it out, but no, there's no reason for it. So here, as soon as she activates, sending Nix to go activate that door, this camera has now somehow seen her, right? And it's focusing in, and it's still seeing her. It's seeing her standing right here for some reason. And boom, it's alerted the station, right? The station's gone into lockdown because she's standing in front of a camera. Why? I don't know, but my guess is that as she activates that button here, so here we go, she presses the button, right? So there you go, open. And you can see exactly when that camera activates, right? So here we go, open, and that glows, and then that starts to appear. 1 frame later, you can see the fade has begun on open. That means the player clicked the mouse here and activated that immediately upon activating this. I think one of the player's collisions, whatever layer mask that is on, this engine uses it doesn't use physics, it uses, what's it called, Havoc. I know, again, I worked with it. And there's probably a collider, a trigger zone collider here, which is not supposed to collide with this trigger zone for the cameras, but unfortunately it did. And as such, you're now being detected and you're not able to move until that trigger zone is completed. I don't know why, that's just how it works, that's just what happened. And the same thing happened here, I don't know how or why. Again, it's just there's just some annoying things that happen sometimes, man. Here, we've got, again, remember the assumption that when a bike is standing still, it's probably got no one on it. The assumption for this game is that if there is a character on a bike, that bike is moving. And if that bike is moving, it's most likely moving forward. Meaning, if a character gets shot off of a bike, they will fall in a way that they would have been driving forward. And as such, when he gets shot off his bike, he gets shot forward, right? He gets thrown right ahead of him, because that's how this works. It's the assumption that these bikes are not going to be manned if they are standing still, and if they aren't standing still, then if a character is riding them, then they're not standing still, right? So it's just that assumption is guiding these animation problems. We've got another collision issue here, and then we've got this, right? So here we go, that's that slide mechanic we saw earlier, and you can see here she performs that animation. It holds that same animation all the time, and in this case it was it's just unfortunate. The fall damage kind of knocked her out because she pressed jump too early here. There we go. That's just how it is. This one is something I've been meaning to talk about. Okay, so here we've got this dude is talking about the game, and that's fine, right? Look carefully at Nix here, right? Nix is the little guy on the bike, on the back of the bike. Watch carefully. In slow-mo, he's kind of sitting on the bike, and as soon as the game speeds up, you can see he's now delaying. Oh, I've got stuff to talk about here. Okay, so he's actually lagging behind the bike in some of these scenes. Here he's not, right? And then he is in some of these scenes. Let's just watch it. Oh, here he is. Look at him go. Oh, he's hanging on, and he's hanging on. And you can see when the character slows down, when the bike slows down, Nix catches up, right? That lag is dependent on the bike's speed, and you can see it here. It's kind of zooms out. Let me explain what's going on here, and I'm gonna have to do so via sketchbook, right? Okay, let's get some bikes drawn. So here we go. We've got the bike. We'll take a blue. We'll take blue. We don't want green, that's for sure. So we've got a bike. And then we've got to put a seat on there, put a handle there, and we've got a bike, right? And then we've got Nix, who in this case is going to be an orange cat, because everything in my work is an orange cat. So there we go, we've got a... There we go. Yeah, there we go. He's an orange cat. Right, so now we've got a cat sitting on the seat. Now let's talk about this. When you update a frame, every frame that updates, both objects need to be moved, right? So let me just make sure it's showing. Okay, both objects need to be moved. The way this works, the bike is a physics object. So the bike gets moved every frame by putting it one velocity forward each step, right? So as a frame goes by, the physics engine says that the bike moves at this velocity, and as such, it performs that much movement. After that, the character gets placed on the bike. right? Because the character is attached to the bike after the bike moves. What happens though if the bike doesn't move first? What happens if within the frame, within the physics frame, the character gets repositioned first? Well, in that case, the character gets repositioned on the bike, and then the bike moves by velocity. Well, we've got to know. That's the end of the frame. This is what gets rendered. So what's happening here is very likely, and that's why it actually changes distance depending on the speed, because the faster the bike is moving, the more it moves within a single frame, right? The longer that delay is, the faster the bike is moving, because within a frame, the character is going to be a longer distance away, right? This is how it works. It's just crazy. So this is something that I actually ran into when working with this game engine, right? This is just, it's one of those things. I actually ran into this problem while dealing with this game engine, right? Where we wanted to build VR systems, and for my VR systems, I have a very particular order in which to update things. Now, the way that Snowdrop works is that your gameplay code acts in two places, right? You can write it in C++, which is the engine code, and the game engine doesn't work like Unity. You can't just type code and then, in the editor, it just gets recompiled. It gets compiled, and then you have to load the engine up. So there's an easier way. You are also able to use visual scripting within the engine. That's node-based visual scripting. So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to write simple nodes within C++, let them compile, build the engine, start the engine, and then in editor, you can use the node-based visual scripting to, make connected nodes and build functional things. Parenting an object, given some random thing that happens in the game, for example, pressing activation on a vehicle, that's something that could easily be done using the visual scripting. But the problem we had was that there's no guarantee, at least at the time of I was working there a few years back, there was no guarantee that the visual scripting nodes would work in a certain order. So sometimes you might have the bike updating first, and sometimes you might have the character updating first. And I'm taking a guess, it's just a guess based on my experience with this engine. It's possible that it's happening because they're using the visual scripting and there's no guarantee of order between which happens first. And that's probably what's going on here. It's very unfortunate, and as a result you get this lagging character, and he does it again here somewhere. There he is, look at him. Oh, he's delayed. He's floating around behind him. Okay, there we go. Unfortunate, there you go. This one is a design decision I really don't like. You're not allowed into the vent unless the other side is open, which is bad design decisions. I just don't like that kind of stuff, right? You gotta think of a different way to do things like that. And then we've got moonwalking. Okay, this one's beautiful. Right, as she jumps, she lands and she's facing the opposite way, which is just very, very unexpected, right? As she lands, she's facing the other way. Now, I've been trying to figure this out. If I were playing the game, I'd be able to actually test each of the staircases. What I would have done, I would have tested it on that staircase in front of you, so that I could see whether she's rotating to zero, the zero rotation, or is she just facing north? Is she just facing down the stairs? Or is she actually flipping 180 degrees? Now, looking at this, I have a feeling she's actually flipping 180 degrees, because at this jump here, she's not actually angled directly down the staircase. Here, when they jump diagonally, she's kind of slightly diagonal. She's facing 180 degrees from where she was going. Now, I'm assuming what's going on here, and again, there's no guarantees that this is actually what's going on. This is just me doing some math. If you had, let's go with the blue pen again, boom. If you have two axes, and this is 0 here on the left hand side and the bottom, this is 1 at the top and 1 on the right, and you had a vector that is going this way, that vector would be 1, 1. Okay, what about if you had in red a vector going that way, doing exactly the same thing? Well, that would be 1, 1, minus. That would just be exactly the same thing, but going the other way. If you are doing a calculation to work out some rotation, you might do something minus something else, right? Not squared, something else. But you would end up with a negative version of that if you simply did something else first and then minus the something. If you just flip the things around, you may end up with a scenario where it looks like this. So it's very possible that someone just did a bit of math wrong in a landing animation when they were calculating a landing. Beautiful. Okay, I don't know why it happens there specifically, but there we go. Another video here. Oh, we've got this. I don't know why, for some reason, that has now acted as a static object. But hey, sometimes these things happen. For some reason, that object probably doesn't have a rigid body collision system. Again, in this engine, it doesn't work the same way as Unity does. A rigid body in this engine is not added to an object. It's actually part of the object as that object was built. They're not components in the same way that they work in Unity. It's a bit more like Unreal. Each object is a prefab, it's a pre-made thing. So I don't know why that wouldn't have all of the necessary components and calculations to tell the character that it is always moving. She should be attached to it. And then you've got, let's see, anything else here. Oh, you've got this. This is, oh man, this is so annoying. So here we go. They switch into Ragdoll a little bit too late. Punch, knockout, animation finishes, and then they delay in air. Here, same thing, and delay and fall. And shockingly enough, I actually dealt with that. That was something that happened in Assassin's Creed Nexus when, in the early days, you know, when everyone was kind of figuring out how to get Ragdolls working, it happened. And yeah, we were dealing with that as well. It's one of those things. You have a little timer sometimes. You need to delay your ragdoll so that it doesn't just explode. This is one of those things. It's very annoying, it's very unfortunate, and someone should just update the values there. It might be easy to fix, it might not be. You never know with these kinds of things. That's just so annoying. And then you've got this one. I've noticed every time I've seen this happen in videos, it's always when you just get off the bike. So I think what's going on is an animation transition was missed because you were mid-bike, getting off bike animation, and the kind of functionality started and it didn't switch into that slide animation, but you know what state you're in. Remember that slide animation from earlier? That's the state that we're in. We're now currently in the slide state, and you can see she has absolutely no control. She can't move left and right. She can only go directly down the slope, right? It activates and then it doesn't inactivate. We've got here an unfortunate reality, which is Nix is supposed to be stolen here, and you can see yeah, you can see that in the subtitles there. Nix is supposed to be kidnapped here, and he just appears before the game kind of knocks him out and it vanishes. Yeah, he's basically always there, right? The easy way to write this functionality when your game is built around having that character there all the time is to just make him disappear, right? He's still there, he's all functional and everything. Don't bother killing all the functionality because you might break all of the other gameplay systems. The easy fix is you just make him invisible and disable all of his sounds and all of his, you know, actions. you don't remove him, because then a lot of gameplay mechanics might break. It's a sad reality, right? That's just how it is. Oh, it's so unfortunate. And then he's doing a sponsored ad. Okay, beautiful. And there you go. It's one of those things, right? That is the video I wanted to make today. I just wanted to go through all of the bugs and glitches that we've seen. And I wanted to explain whatever I could explain, whatever made sense from what I've seen. Let's get this green screen down and switch back over to here, and then switch that off and switch that off, and you know, here we go. And yeah, that's that's unfortunate. There we go. thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe you got some information. Maybe you didn't even make it to the end. And of course, here's a lightsaber. Yes. Vroom, 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 vroom. It looks a bit really, it looks, well, they both, the cape and the lightsaber look really awkward when I actually switch area, right? So that, oh no, oh, everything needs, oh no, is that the sound? Is that the sound? Yeah, I need to fix a bunch of things. Sorry about this. This video has been a bit rambling, a lot of rambling. And yeah, it's actually just me. See, I'm underneath the mask. It's just me. You know, there we go. Thanks very much for watching. I will see you in the next video very, very soon. Goodbye. I'm gonna knock you out with this. The tracking is really bad today. I'm going to upgrade the tracking very soon. Oh my goodness. You're gonna love it. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.